So this month, my goal was to go through all of the phases of a woman's life cycle, from fertility all the way through menopause, so that you can get a better understanding of what is happening with your body. I know that a lot of my followers and people who are on Instagram and the platform are younger, but there are also a lot of you who are older and in later stages of life who are coming to me with questions or complaints of symptoms and feeling like you're not being heard by your doctor. And what I want you to know is that while things like night sweats or hot flashes or memory problems, weight gain, low libido, all of those things are common in menopause, those things don't have to be your normal, and that you can support yourself with diet and lifestyle. So let's start really basic. What is menopause? Menopause is the time in a woman's life cycle where the cessation of her periods have stopped. This just has to be, to fit the definition, your periods have to have stopped for 12 full months or 1 year. That's how you meet the definition of menopause. Now, this is when your ovaries are done producing eggs. It's the permanent cessation of your ovaries producing eggs. That's why you're not getting a period anymore, because you're not ovulating anymore. And so this can happen anywhere between the time that you are 45 to 65, but for most women, the average age that menopause happens is 51 years old. You can also do a ton of different testing to see and understand if you are approaching menopause or moving in that direction. And you can test things like your estrogen to progesterone ratio, which if your progesterone is lower, if your periods are becoming more irregular in your 40s, you may know, maybe I'm moving in that direction. If you have higher climbing levels of FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, meaning your brain is having a harder time telling your ovaries to produce eggs every month, that's a sign that you are also approaching menopause. There's lots of different blood tests and things that you can do to see where your body's at and to get a real gauge on these things. But a lot of times our symptoms can tell us what is going on. And so, like I said, when we are moving through that time period, our bodies are going through a lot of hormonal changes. As you age, cortisol naturally starts to rise. Also, as you age, progesterone naturally starts to fall because you are ovulating either less often or not at all. And so naturally, you may start to feel some symptoms of whether that is like with high cortisol, you may be gaining weight, you may be sleeping less, you may have more anxiety. But we want to do the things that we can to support your body's cortisol levels, to support your body's natural progesterone levels, rather than in this modern culture, what we so often do is deplete our body on top of the changes that it's already going through. And that's what makes some of these symptoms so intense for so many people. So how can you support your body as you move through menopause? So the first thing that I will say is get your body moving. There's actually been plenty of research to show that women who exercise regularly as they move through menopause, as compared to women who don't exercise, have better mood, better energy levels, and better levels of circulation. And that's just with 3.5 hours of exercise per week. So if you can get 30 minutes a day in, you're really doing something special for your body. That being said, doing things outdoors are great to get your vitamin D in, like hiking, walking outside in nature, and to lower levels of anxiety, while resistance training, doing some sort of training with weights or some sort of Pilates where you're building lean muscle, is so important when it comes to your metabolic function and being able to either maintain or lose weight as you move through menopause. The more lean muscle we have, the better we're able to burn through calories when we are at rest. And so making sure that you're still resistance training, or even if you haven't been for a really long time, you can always start with lower weights, with lower, smaller reps, and then build up over time. But you want to be doing some sort of movement for 30 minutes a day, or at least 3.5 hours a week. things that you want to stop doing while you move through menopause. If you're a smoker, you really want to quit smoking. Smoking is associated already with low libido, nutrient deficiencies, low energy levels. So you are going to exacerbate your symptoms of menopause if you're smoking. And so making sure that you get yourself to a place where you can safely wean off of that is really important. You also want to really reduce your intake of junk food and processed food, because when we eat that type of sugary processed food, we know what happens. Our blood sugar spikes and crashes, and it's going to be a lot harder for us to maintain or lose weight, and it's going to be a lot harder for us to feel like we have a stable mood. Blood sugar that's stable equals a mood that is stable. And then the last thing is that you really want to reduce your intake of alcohol. Not only is alcohol, especially when you're drinking it every single night, going to cause those blood sugar spikes and crashes, it's also going to burden the liver with toxicity, which makes your liver have a harder time eliminating any sort of waste, toxins, or excess estrogens, which then leads to inflammation and hormonal imbalances that you don't want to be dealing with. And then from there, things that you do want to start doing. You want to start making sure that you're getting a good amount of essential fatty acids in your diet. The standard American diet is really, really lacking in essential fatty acids, and you need these in your diet to be able to synthesize and create hormones. And so when we think about menopause in that time, we are losing the function of our ovaries, and so we want to be able to create and produce more minimal but amounts of hormones on our own, whether that's from our adrenal glands or whatever else. And so making sure you have things like salmon, walnuts, avocados, olives, things like that, where you can get your essential fatty acids in, is really important. From there, like I said, you want to support your adrenal glands, because when you transition into menopause, right, that transition alone is another stressor on your body. And so if your adrenal glands are already in a position where your HPA axis is off and you are chronically stressed out, your body's going to interpret the transition of menopause, that hormonal flux, as an additional stressor, and you're going to feel the symptoms all the more. And so supporting your adrenal glands is really important, because what can start to happen is your adrenal glands serve as the backup system when your ovaries stop producing hormones. Your adrenal glands serve as that backup system to produce estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, again, in more minimal amounts. And so if they're not supported in doing that, hormonal imbalance is really likely to occur. And so you want to make sure that you are doing everything you can, from meditation, having good sleep hygiene, taking things like vitamin C or ashwagandha if those things are recommended by your doctor based on what your needs are in your blood work, so that you're doing everything that you possibly can to support your adrenal glands as cortisol naturally starts to rise, as your adrenals start to take over that production of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, as your ovary function starts to decline. From there, you also want to increase your fiber intake. For most people, less than 5% of the population are not getting enough fiber. And what I see is when people increase their fiber intake, this is so supported in the research, you're going to have increased satiety, so better fullness. You're not going to have as many cravings for sugar or fatty foods, and your digestion is going to be better. You're going to have better energy levels, your blood sugar is going to be more stable, and you're going to have better elimination of toxins. So that way you are clearing out any sort of excess estrogens as well, along with better fiber intake. So things like psyllium husk you can add to drinks, or you can do chia seeds, flax seeds, leafy greens. There are so many ways to increase your fiber intake, but what I would say is definitely go slow over time. 5 grams per week, every single day, added in, versus going from having 10 grams of fiber a day to 30 grams of fiber a day. That's a surefire way to make sure you feel really bloated. So go really slow. From there, you want to make sure that you're supporting a happy, healthy liver. If you have a sluggish liver, it's an increased burden, making it harder for your body to, again, eliminate excess estrogens and toxins, increasing oxidative stress, increasing inflammation, and thereby worsening menopausal symptoms. And so we talked about reducing alcohol, but you can also increase your intake of cruciferous vegetables, things like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower. Those are great ways to help support your liver. And then taking some supplements like DIM, diindolylmethane, that is an extract of cruciferous vegetables, or things like milk thistle, if they are recommended by your doctor, to help support your liver in this hormonal transition. And then when it comes to your diet, one of the additional things that you really want to focus on are phytoestrogens in your diet. And so phytoestrogens are very different than xenoestrogens. Xenoestrogens are the bad type of estrogens, the ones that we want to avoid. Phytoestrogens actually help to modulate levels of estrogen in your body. If you're deficient, they help to raise them. If you have too much, they help to lower them. And so what are good dietary sources of phytoestrogens? Things like fennel, apples, oats. Those are great foods that have phytoestrogens in them. So including things like that in your diet day to day is important. And then when you think about what has xenoestrogens, how can I avoid getting those bad estrogens from coming into my body? Think more about what your food is coming in, containers, things like plastics, things like toxic fragrance that you are spraying on your body. If you're using a perfume every day, that's not non-toxic. If you're using makeup, that's not non-toxic. If you're drinking out of plastic water bottles, all of those things are ways that we can accumulate xenoestrogens over time. So phytoestrogens come more from the foods that we eat. Again, things like oats, fennel, apples, nuts, and seeds. And xenoestrogens come from things that maybe your food or your makeup products, your food is packaged in, or what your makeup products are, how you're absorbing things through your skin. So when we think about supplements, I have a list that I want to share with you guys, but what I want you to remember is that it's so important for you to go talk to your doctor before you start any of these things, because there's potential interactions with medicines you're already taking, with supplements that you're already taking, and I am not your doctor. I don't have your lab work. I'm not your healthcare practitioner. And so before you start anything, you have to go and make sure that it's okay based on your lab work, based on what you're putting in your body, to start something like this. Now, that being said, there's lots of great research out there to show that there are plenty of herbs and supplements that are super helpful to help women move through menopause and help to ease some of the symptoms that they're going through. So when we think about wild yam, this is typically something that comes in a cream. I would have some of my clients use for lower levels of progesterone. So if they are not quite menopausal yet, or they are getting to that point where their periods are very irregular, wild yam cream as a way to help naturally support progesterone levels is a really, really great option. The other option that usually comes in an oral pill form is called Vitex or chaste tree berry. They're the same thing, but typically that's something that can help to balance out the estrogen to progesterone ratio if we have somebody who is more estrogen dominant, and can help ease some of the symptoms that come along with that, whether that is heavy, painful periods, whether that is something like weight loss resistance, things like headaches and migraines, depending on what's causing those symptoms. If it is more estrogen dominant related, low progesterone, Vitex and wild yam cream are two really great options. From there, you have black cohosh, and that's a really great one to help with night sweats and to help with hot flashes. Black cohosh is an herb that's really generally great. You can find it in like a tincture form at your local Whole Foods. That's a really great one to start if you are having those types of symptoms. It's also good for mood swings, for things like low libido, some of those like generalized menopausal symptoms that we hear about. Black cohosh is kind of like one of those things that I like for a menopausal woman who's feeling almost all of the menopausal symptoms to some degree and wants to feel relief. That's typically the first go-to that I have. If you're somebody who's just dealing with the hot flashes and night sweats, then you may want to go with something like red clover, which is another herb that's great at helping with just those two specific things, hot flashes and night sweats. So if you're somebody who may have already been struggling with HPA axis dysfunction before entering menopause, or you were dealing with some sort of low progesterone before your body decided to make that transition and now it's plummeting even lower, these types of bioidentical hormone replacement therapies might be a really great solution for you. Now, with that being said, my recommendation is to always start with the diet and lifestyle. Start by making the changes that are necessary to the food that you're eating, how you're timing your meals, how you're stabilizing your blood sugar. Next is maca. Maca is a great supplement for women who are looking to balance their hormonal levels, to boost levels of estrogen when estrogen gets really low in menopause, because it can help with energy levels, it can help boost libido, it can help with mood, it can help with so many different menopausal symptoms because it's rich in amino acids, zinc, magnesium, B vitamins. It's such a holistic formula, and so I like to throw some maca in a smoothie. It's kind of got an earthy, nutty taste, but it comes in a powder form. And then the last thing, supplement wise, that I would recommend is kava. If you're somebody who is experiencing a lot of mood changes in menopause or perimenopause, kava is a great relaxant. It helps with things like anxiety and depression. You can usually find this in a tea form. It's great if you're trying to go to bed at night. If you have insomnia or trouble sleeping, kava is really great to help relax the body and the mind. So now, what do we have to talk about when it comes to menopause? Of course, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. This is such an important topic to understand and to talk about when we think about menopause, because I think so many women are unnecessarily scared and afraid of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy because of research that was done so many years ago on traditional hormone replacement therapy. Now, the research that was done on hormone replacement therapy, the drug that was made from horse's urine, it was an estrogen only therapy, and therefore it caused a lot of different female cancers, whether that's breast cancer, uterine cancer, things like that, because estrogen dominance has that impact. Now, when we think about bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, that usually comes in a cream form, and doctors are working with you to balance those hormones that you're becoming deficient in, that your ovaries stop producing, estrogen, specifically estradiol, which is the form of estrogen that you're producing when you are menstruating, progesterone, not progestin, so not synthetic progestin that you find in the birth control pill, but real progesterone, and testosterone. Balancing all three of those so that you don't become estrogen dominant and get those symptoms. When we think about bioidentical hormone replacement therapy too, you're also receiving so much lower of a dose of hormones than you would be receiving if you were taking something like the birth control pill. So what we've found through years and years of doing this in a different way than they initially started doing it is that it's much safer. So if you're somebody who may have already been struggling with HPA axis dysfunction before entering menopause, or you were dealing with some sort of low progesterone before your body decided to make that transition and now it's plummeting even lower, these types of bioidentical hormone replacement therapies might be a really great solution for you. Now, with that being said, my recommendation is to always start with the diet and lifestyle. Start by making the changes that are necessary to the food that you're eating, how you're timing your meals, how you're stabilizing your blood sugar, if you are moving your body regularly, if you are super stressed, can you support your HPA axis a little bit more so that you are sleeping better, or at least the best that you can before starting these bioidentical hormones, so that you have a really good foundation to start these things from. But all of that being said, these are tools that you can come back to at any time in your life cycle to best support your overall health and well-being, besides of course the supplements. Those are very specific to menopause, and I hope that this was a helpful video so that you can ease this transition if you are feeling any sort of symptoms, and so that you can navigate this time of transition with more ease. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you next week.